All right, we got the coaches, technology, sidelines. My name is not Ty. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to try to help moderate this roundtable. It's just going to be, honestly, open forum. We've got some great, I've got great resources here in the front. I've got Chad Bunn from BYU, Joe Harrington. I think he's invented everything that we use. And Doug Oakman from LSU. I think we've had a lot of interesting ideas from vendors this week. Like we've all got an opportunity to, or hopefully everybody's got an opportunity to stop into all the vendor stations, especially the ones that are doing replay. You know, there are the obvious two that are our main editing partners, but I think that there are also some other options that could be looked at for replay. But I think one of the biggest things that needs to be looked at, and the three guys I just mentioned probably agree, is looking at infrastructure within your house. And I think one of the big things I heard from the big two from DV Sport and Exos was that you need to, when you go back, do a site survey with your IT person and probably the person that's running your stadium. And however long it's going to take, a week, 2 weeks to get that done, to mark out how much fiber you really have. I know Matt Harper talked about how much he was surprised that he had in his stadium when DV Sport came and did their spring game. I know that I'm fortunate because I had a stadium that was built in '09 and we had the NFL play for 2 years in our stadium, so I know we're wired for sound. But there are others that might not be. So I think at the very least that's a starting point where folks should be looking is at fiber in their stadium and how much connectivity you have. I don't know what that means at all levels. I don't know what that means when for example, at an Illinois State, for you and I, or when you drop down to the D2 and D3 levels. I don't know what that's going to mean for that level, for those levels, but I know that at the FBS level, at the Power 5 level, we're definitely talking about fiber. And I know that in 2 years when I go to play at Miami, Ohio, hopefully that they will have some kind of fiber running through their stadium. I'm willing to open this up. That's just kind of an open preamble for anything else. I'd love to hear what everybody else's thoughts are, or what anybody else's thoughts are. I don't know, Chad, if you want to start with anything.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just a couple of things in going back and forth. I mean, I kind of got wind of this about January, I guess. And being that we're an independent, we're kind of on an island. So what I'm going to give to you is a proposal that I met with our ITs about, with Arrow about. So some things we're going to do as an independent. I think one of the biggest things, you guys that are in conferences need to go home and get with your conference office. Because honestly, in talking to the NCAA, it's kind of like the federal government versus states. They want to make a big, broad sweep so that they don't get hung out to dry. And they're laying a lot of it back on your conference offices to decide specifically what each school is going to need. So as an independent, we've got to know that we're going to get schools from different conferences every game, okay? So we align ourselves heavily with the Big 12, with the Mountain West Conference, as far as our officials. That's where they come from. So as far as our replay systems are concerned, we use those guys to be our guidelines. We work with them a lot. I mean, I talk to Brett a lot about this. So some things I think we need to be proactive. We can't be sitting in this meeting a year from now in Atlanta knowing that it's coming for 2017. I really highly recommend you go home and get with their IT guys. I had a short conversation with my IT guy before I came to the meeting. And we've had this discussion, but I said, okay, I need some numbers. I need to know what I'm looking at. Well, just for an instance, and I'm not an IT guy by any means, however, if you've got short runs, for instance, we think we could come from our camera deck to our visiting coach's booth and our coach's booth with just good old coax. Okay, we're probably 500 feet or less. Okay, Now, once again, I mean, you can go fiber, you can go coax. If you want to go heavy duty coax, you can spend the money for it, okay? Your biggest cost though is gonna be your installation. So you really need to figure out how far you're gonna go with this, okay? I mean, we're gonna have some long runs. If we've got to go over to our locker room, that's a long run, okay? So, you know, I mean, I said, okay, give me a proposal, give me a ballpark. So we're talking going from our camera booth, which is on the 4th level, to our coaches' booths on the 3rd level, and then we got to go across the stadium. We got to go down to across the stadium for our locker room. We got to go down below for the visiting team locker room. He said, you need a budget anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. And the majority of that cost is going to be installation. So, I mean, I'm proposing that we probably run 2 lines from our camera platform to our coach's booth, 2 lines from the camera platform to the visiting coach's booth, so we both have those. And then our proposal is from within our coach's booths, be them home or visiting, that's where we go to the locker rooms. That becomes a hub. You know, it's interesting. I don't know how many of you guys sit in live log, Aero live log, at our live logs, our games, okay? And we've been really fortunate that we found a really cool thing. We talked about it, but then we go to UCLA and we see what Kenny's doing to UCLA. Kenny has a really cool thing that he doesn't have to bring cards from the end zone. I don't know how many of you run cards from the end zone to a central place to edit. Ken doesn't do that. It was awesome. So we went home the next week. We have a great IT department, and they pulled fiber for us from our end zone. We set HMARC 10s in the back. The camera triggers HMARC 10. As soon as the porter's done, we've got our cards and we can go to edit. So we don't have to, we're still running cards as backup in those cameras, right? We can edit. So thinking this through a little bit, instead of editing there on the camera deck, we may now have maybe Aero, maybe somebody else, down in the coach's booth on our next level, actually editing, because you got to do that anyway, and taking care of coaches. So we're kind of going to do 2 things at the same time. That's kind of what we're philosophically thinking about. But there in that same area, that's where feeds would go to your locker rooms. Now, once again, I mean, Scotty made a great point yesterday. You're going to walk into a visiting team locker room, who the hell knows what you're going to get? I mean, we all know when we go on the road. I mean, I've gone to schools where the locker room's painted pink to freak you out. You know, I mean, that's just, huh? Yeah, thanks, seriously. So, I mean, these are things you need to get with your, you know, I'll sit down, shut up, but these are things you guys need to get, from my standpoint, with your IT department. From our standpoint, we're going to do the lines. The lines are going to be just like the lines we have. I mean, that's just a gentleman's agreement. I guess if you wanted to screw people, you could. I don't know. I mean, it kind of was the wild, wild west when we talked with a guy from the NCAA yesterday. So I really think you need to go back and put the screws to your conference offices and have them get with your vendors. There's vendors out there, know what they're doing, work with your vendors. But your vendors need to be involved also. And, you know, I mean, try not to let administrators make these decisions because you'll go back and fix them later. That's my concern. So, Joe T, good to see you here. I'll hand the mic to you. You go for it. Or Doug, I don't care. You guys throw your thoughts out.
Doug, you had who came in?
From a technology standpoint?
Yeah, from the in-game.
Sky Coach.
Talk a little
So
bit
we
about
had Sky Coach come in for a few practices during the spring.
Sorry.
LSU had a Sky Coach come in for a few practices. In my opinion, all the software is going to work the same. You know, I mean, you're going to get the clips that all populate on the top. They're going to intercut. It's just a matter of price, reliability, but your in-game solution is going to have to be wired. In the SEC, we're fortunate that as a conference, we came up with some basic guidelines that the stadiums have to be wired with fiber. And what was pushing that is the replay system. Because the SEC is going to mandate that our sideline and end zone feeds are fed to the replay system. We're going to the 6-channel replay system. 4 feeds come from the truck. Sideline and end zone feed is going to be 2 other angles that they have on a replay system. So that's forcing us to do it right now. So we were all tasked with getting 2 proposals. One was for the replay system. That was your base infrastructure, and then you extend it to the coach's booth and locker room as a second proposal. Talking to the SEC office, all the proposals came in. Joe Lyle at South Carolina had a $14,000 proposal. Mine was $130,000. So, I mean, but just for the base infrastructure for the replay system for LSU is going to be $75,000. When I extended and I actually extended it to the sideline, to the locker room, and to the coach's booth, and that was another $40,000. So I'm looking at $135,000, you know, at LSU to do it all. I don't know what other people came in at, but you know, I think Cole told me Vanderbilt and LSU were the 2 highest in the conference as far as their infrastructure. But it's all based on what you have. They've got to run a lot of conduit and different things in my stadium. So, you know, they walked around the stadium for a week, surveying everything I had, and evidently we don't have much infrastructure because they've got to pull a lot. But does anybody have any questions or anything from, you know, and I think DB Sport had a slide in a presentation we had that basically gives you the base criteria for the, you know, the single mode 8 strands. You want to run a redundant line for sure, so you don't want to, you know, you have a backup. But the SEC is actually going to pay for the boxes that we install at the camera locations. We're just responsible for pulling the fiber. You know, so they're going to pay for the rattlers, the boxes, everything else. So all our stadiums are going to be identical in the SEC.
So we had an impromptu Big Ten meeting while we were here, and we were fortunate to have, hey, Mike Ortiz, would you mind coming up here? Mike Ortiz presented to us on behalf of the Pac-12. Ken, if you want to come up here and add anything, you can. But Mike spoke a little bit specifically toward what the Pac-12 conference is kind of talking about.
So we're kind of down the line a little bit where we've, you know, credit to the video coordinators in our conference. We were able to kind of get this fast track to get organized, and then those guys went out and most of them were able to get costs prior to our main meetings. So I was able to take a range to our ADs and our head coaches, kind of prep them for, you know, what we were looking at in terms of cost, just to kind of, you know, take some of the sticker shock off. And so, you know, we're about 95% of the way home in terms of, you know, actually having the cost pushed through by our CEO group. So for us, you know, we've talked about wiring from our end zones to our sideline shooting location, kind of like Ken was just, or like Chad was describing that Ken's already doing at UCLA. And then we would also have that wiring to the visiting and the opponent, the home and the visiting booth as well. One thing that we're really trying to get done in terms of connectivity back to the locker room is we're trying to make that a straight fiber shot for us. We're trying to avoid switches. We're trying to avoid any kind of even appearance that there would be, you know, the ability to take any of that data that would be entered by any of the vendors and then reassociate it back to videos. So for us, that's a critical piece. You know, I hope we can get that pushed through, but again, I know that's going to be a cost depending on who is, you know, footing that bill. So for us, you know, I feel like our guys have done a pretty good job. We'll see what happens in terms of cost moving forward, and if we can get that pushed through finally. But our intent in the in the Pac-12 is that when you roll in with your solution, that we're going to have everything terminate, you know, just fiber to SDI, that you should be able to plug in your coach's booth and kind of go. You should also have the flexibility to go to the shooting location and then acquire your end zone feed. Some of our guys do shoot double end zones, so we've mandated that if you do that, and you're gonna wire it, then you need to make sure that that's also the same for the visiting. The other thing we've done at the conference office is that, looking at the rule, it says that you can send, video obviously down to the locker room. We've said that as long as everything to that wall in the locker room, that has to be the same as well. And then in terms of devices and how you would display that in the respective locker rooms, we, as the conference, are stopping at the wall. So we're not going to say at UCLA you have to have, the same 5, 80-inch monitors in the visiting and the home locker room. So that puts a little bit of, it gives you the option to be creative. So when Mike rolls in and plays Ken at UCLA, Mike can have his travel projectors and do what he needs to do, or travel with monitors or whatever. So the other thing we're looking at, and Ty talked about this a little yesterday too, is devices. Are we capping the numbers? What do we do if a situation when something goes down in one of the booths? How are we going to handle that? So for us in our conference, we've looked at it as a positive. I feel like we have a lot of good communication and between our video coordinators in terms of how we're going to shape that policy, so that when it impacts them, 9 out of the 12 games, and when they're at home during the non-conference games, that, we want to make sure that we get their feedback, so that when we form that policy and kind of take and shape a little bit more what the NCAA's done, then that allows them a little bit more of an influence on what's realistic, versus just saying, okay, well, at the conference office we're going to mandate certain things that probably aren't realistic. So again, to echo what Chad said, I would definitely recommend getting in touch with your conference office, making sure whoever it is that's going to be making those decisions, or if it's an intermediary or whatever, discuss with them some of the real challenges that you feel like you're going to face. And I think eventually you're going to get a lot of this stuff standardized. But I know that I'm in contact with the SEC office, with the Big Ten, with the ACC. So I think all of us are trying to do things best we can to get it uniform across the board in terms of cabling. That's kind of what our discussions have been. But at the end of the day, it's going to, again, as Chad said, kind of come and start from you. It sounds like the SEC is on a good path as well, and I know Tony in the Big Ten is on a good path as well, and I'm sure the ACC is making its way there as well. So, yeah, probably heard enough from me, but if you have any questions, or Ken, Mike, any of our guys, you want to add anything? No? Oh, all right, perfect.
So I personally don't have a whole ton to add. I do want to open it up so that if people want to discuss it more, they can. I know that everybody's going to have their favorite opinion as far as the vendor goes, but I think that if you're going to ask me on an opinion, I'm going to say that you need to get your stadium fiber. You need to go back and get your site tour done with your IT people and your stadium folks. I haven't done it. I know that there's a lot, the 2 conferences I already mentioned, they've done it. They're a lot of the way there. Big Ten Conference, I'm gonna be honest with you, we're not there. We're not. We're gonna get there, but we're not. We keep kind of looking at each other for direction, looking at the conference, and the conference has kind of said, they kind of pushed it back to us. So it's back to us to lead it. So I'm not sure how many other conferences are like that. I don't know if the ACC is like that or not. And I'm not sure what's going on at the Group of 5 level also. So I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in at this point. Any thoughts? No, go.
I would just say that, just think big picture. So if you only have to have 4 connections, TV Sport may have said H bands of fiber, run 12. The cost is going to be the labor to do this stuff. It's not the cost of the fiber. So anything you do, just think big picture down the road. Maybe you need more connections. Maybe you need more stuff. So that's the biggest piece of it. And don't be try to just think of it as in a bigger mindset of what's going on right now. Because a couple of years ago we weren't thinking about this, but the NFL was already doing it. So there's those parts of it. And also just in everything that we do, we have to think in a big picture way. But this is a perfect example of this to say, hey, to know that I can do more because you never know if you need more cameras up there. Maybe the networks want to put, maybe at some point the networks are shooting 4K, we're not shooting 4K, they need to put all 22 up there. Well, if the fiber's already there for them then it's one less thing to worry about down the road, so I just would say that.
Thanks, Scott.
Would it be
Sorry.
beneficial for the group to kind of go in a Power 5, Group of 5, roundtable, nominate one member from each conference to work with their conference video coordinator and try to adopt a set of standards from conference to conference, so we can have some overlying infrastructure? Here's the SEC standard. Here's the Pac-12 standard. Try to see how close we can get the standards together, so as we travel to other stadiums, we kind of have a unified front when you go to your ADs and say, we need to pull 12 strands of fiber to both sidelines, both locker rooms, both press boxes now, because in the next 5 years, that's what's going to need to be the standard. And every conference is doing it, and when they call around, the other ADs are hearing the same information because we all have one talking paper, and we're all reading the same company line, and there's kind of a unified front to this whole thing. I don't know, I mean, is there an appetite for that across the other conferences?
Voice vote, everybody's all in favor of something like that? Okay. So, what I'm gonna suggest then at that then is that the conference reps, I'm a conference rep, but conference reps go back to your members. If the conference rep isn't comfortable with that, I apologize, Luke. If the conference reps aren't comfortable with talking about the technology, find somebody within the conference, and then conference reps, let's contact each other. I'll send out an email string. I'll get the conference reps from Darby later on, and send out some emails and kind of group those together. Both from, so we'll do a group of 5 one, we'll do a group of 5 and a Power 5 conference, and kind of get all the ideas together, and we'll start meshing that back. And what we can do is use Facebook to push that together, and we'll email Scott Eiler and Ken Norris.
And me.
And Chad.
Thank you. And Facebook stuff.
So, and Twitter.
Okay, go grow your farm.
My main concern with this whole endeavor of wiring our stadiums is what is the minimum qualification? Since we are talking about all divisions, people have different considerations for their locker room. I have the largest locker room on the planet, so we can set up whatever we want in there. You know, the idea of terminating at the wall, you can set up monitors if you have them, projectors, but some people have small entrance ways, one guy in and one guy out at a time. You know, for the smaller schools, you know, where are we setting all of these, you know, where are these drops going? Because I went to BYU a few years ago and we were kicked out by TV from the quote-unquote normal coaching booth. We were like on the 35 or past that because that's the area that we were allotted. So, you know, when we get kicked out by TV or we have those discussions internally for the schools that have a much smaller press box or you've got like no seats, nowhere to put your staff, what are the minimum qualifications? No cover, ladders. You know, I looked at that EXO solution, so I got to carry my camera tripod up. A lot of the Mountain West schools have ladders. You know, there's no cover on a lot of the end zones. Like, how are we supposed to facilitate these, you know, this whole endeavor if we can't even get through regular game day half the time? So those are all questions we need to ask our, you know, our administration and the NCAA. How important is this when we can't get our regular job done?
I think a good thought about that would be to work with your game management folks and say, hey, when TV comes in, this is still our area. This is still the area that is ours. This is our working area. You're not kicking coaches out of coaches' areas. You're not, you know, moving other people out of other people's areas. You wouldn't kick trainers out of the training room. So, just a general thought on that. I'm not sure how other people feel about that. I know Matt Heron had something else. No.
I'm just gonna bring it up for, group of 5 in the FCS schools. What are we supposed to do? We don't have a permanent, end zone location. I mean, a lot of us use scissor lifts in our end zones. So how is that gonna work? I guess would be my question. What do we talk to about that? Because I know at our school, we use end zone, we use the scissor lift for the end zone game day. Where's the wires gonna go for that? That's my question.
I don't have an answer for that, because I don't know what the solution is gonna be, what solution you'll have at your facility. And I don't know what it is for the group of 5. I imagine that, you know, we can talk about the differentials in equipment and everything, you're gonna see it. It's just because of financial stuff. Like, everybody can agree on it, right? So, your Power 5's gonna have the goods. The middle 5's gonna have, or your group of 5's gonna have some of the goods, and then your FCS might just have, what's left, a camera. Maybe it's just a single camera. I don't know. I don't have the answers, and I guess that's part of why maybe this is a good conversation to kind of keep having as we go along. I apologize, I don't, Bill, I know that doesn't answer your
I
question.
just want to put it out there because that's something I thought about for those of us who don't have. I mean, it's great to wire if you have a permanent end zone, but like we don't. So what am I supposed to do? What are others supposed to do that are 500 lifts?
You guys all have it.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. You just have a box that's at the wall, so you're out and transit coax, as HDS guy out.
So what Ken was saying is you have a box at the bottom of the lift, a bottom of a wall, I'm sorry, and then you can run your coax and just drop it down off the lift. Thanks, Ken.
Be that person, would you be the first liaison?
Yeah. Scott Eiler.
There's gotta be somebody.
So what Luke is saying is, and it's not a bad idea, to have a contact or two to be in contact with Ty at the NCAA. Hey, listen, I've been a part of this organization since '03. This is the second time I've seen the NCAA come to us. Okay? The first time, the most common answer was, I don't know. This time, he at least tried to give us answers, right? We can at least give him the fact he stood up here for an hour and tried to answer the questions the best he could. And when he was wrong, which he did give us an incorrect answer, everybody got an email within 2 hours, right? Okay? 2 hours from the NCAA, that's moving. Right? I think we can all agree on that. So why not have a point of contact or two? Scott, are you volunteering to do that?
Yeah, I will help in coordination with maybe someone else.
I have already.
Scott, Chad, there we
I don't
go.
want to step on anybody's toes.
Okay.
I am more than happy.
All in favor?
Didn't sound unanimous.
So is anybody opposed?
I don't know, me and Scott are Facebook guys, so, you know,
Can you email us?
It's also not something that has to be decided upon today.
Right.
Right.
But at least we'd have point of contact with NCAA, which I think would be a good thing. Jason Sanders.
What has the conference done in terms of working with the NCAA and at all to better educate them just on what we do and what we need, so that when he shows up, it's not a bunch of I don't knows, and they have a better understanding of what we do and what we expect?
Well, I'll explain how I'll explain how I got to Ty. And it wasn't easy, okay? It finally took me getting a cell phone number from Walt Anderson, the Director of Officials in the Big 12, and from Ken Rivera, our former Director of Officials in the Mountain West Conference. Once I got his cell phone, yeah, I mean, let's be honest, I mean, whether we like the NCAA or not, it's the bureaucracy, it's hard to get through. But I had been with him about 5 years prior with officials, and I knew he was a really good guy because I was really impressed with him then, and I'm still really impressed with him. He just was told the wrong thing. I mean, once he got a hold of Roger Reddy, who does our rules, good, bad, or indifferent, Roger said, hey, you know, we're not doing broadcast stuff. It's coach's video. So I really think Ty wants to help. He honestly apologized prophetically for them not really spending as much time with us as a group as they need to. I think they know that now. Yesterday was a wake-up call for him. I mean, he's sent me a couple emails since then, telling me how much he enjoyed being here, how much he wants to help. So I really think they know what's going on, because honestly, so many things they do, they just do. I mean, they're a governing body. And sometimes we know with our administrators, until you get to the right administrator, it's just, you know, it's a glass ceiling, you gotta break through it. So that's how we got to him. I really think, I know that even though we're not in the Mountain West Conference anymore, I still have great contacts in the Mountain West Conference. I mean, I have probably every other week conversations with our two administrators in that conference. So the conferences themselves are meeting and talking about this. Okay, don't think they're not. And don't think the ADs are not aware of it, because they are. If you're like my school, sometimes it doesn't filter down. Okay? So that's why you need to go knock on the door. Because a lot of times they're not going to come and knock on our door. So you need to go tell them, we've met, we've talked to the NCAA, we need to work together. I mean, what did you hire me to do? Okay, well, what is my job? What do you want me to do here? You know, back to an administrator. Well, what am I here to do? If that's what you want to do, that's great. But please don't ask me to do this later on. You have to, somehow you got to develop that relationship with coaches and administrators. That's just basic football video coordinator, director 101 kind of stuff. Same thing with your conference offices. Go bug them. Okay? And that's what we're going to do with the NCAA. I'm going to continue to bug them now that they know who we are and what we're doing. And I think as an organization, we've all kind of been willing to do that.
Just so you all know, one thing that Ty came up to us right after the meeting, and he apologized again for the NCAA not being as involved and not being as informed as he felt that they should be about us as an association. He even went as far as saying that the NCAA will become a paid member of CSVA, so that way they know what's going on with us. They can recognize what we're doing. So, for myself and the board.
So to that end, is it worth the conference trying to get more involved with AFCA and whatnot, and the administrators convention, so that we have a presence in each one of these things?
If they'll allow us.
Because
that's what we got to do.
Because I understand what you were saying, Chad, but I'm also at a point where it's like, I shouldn't have to go to the administrator when he's having these talks. He should immediately know his realm of expertise in that and say, hey, let me grab someone. You know, if they're going to look at doing a new equipment deal or whatever, they're going to bring in the equipment guy and they're going to talk to him. They're not going to wait for the equipment guy to come to him and just make a blind decision.
Well, they should have to or not. We have to.
We're just not there yet.
Right. And so
at every place,
is that
someplace
something
you are.
that the conference can work towards, so that we have a organizational presence at AFCA,
I think we make
so that
sure
coaches
it's
know
there.
that, and with the administrators conference, there's a
Agreed.
presence there.
Personally, yeah, I agree. I think that's going to come with time. I think yesterday was a big step in the right direction. I think that was huge to have the NCAA recognize us, to be here. Felt it important enough to come, first of all. I mean, I know geographically it was much easier for them to come here than other places. But for us to have a footprint and to have a connection with the other associations around the country, that's going to come with time. But I think we're moving in the right direction for that. And I think that will, when all these entities can kind of come together, it's going to be better for us. But I think we're in the process of that.
I'm not sure what else to say here. I feel like we've kind of, we've ridden this thing pretty well. What else? Just saying, I was just gonna ask, what else does anybody have on this topic?
At smaller schools, what if the administration can't afford it or won't put the money towards the infrastructure? Like, are we gonna get fined by the NCAA? Like, what's gonna happen if you go up to them and say, hey, we need this to compete? What's gonna happen if they say no?
I think it's up to your conference. All I think the rule is saying is it's allowed. You don't have to do it. You don't have to play with cleated shoes either, but it helps. So, and it's not me trying to be a jerk answer, but I think that all the rule is saying is it's allowed. It's not mandated. Hey, you have to have this in there, and it has to be fiber, and it has to be this, and it has to be that. Unless your conference is saying this is what it has to be. This is what we are mandating it is to be.
What happens when you go to Miami of Ohio and they haven't put the infrastructure in, and your coaches don't have the video? Then I mean, how do you?
Does Miami have the video?
No. I mean that's the problem.
I can't go to Miami and run fiber.
Well, but
sorry, Ken.
More than likely, it's going to become part of the game contracts that your game manager has signed with the team. But that's the only way it's going to be solved.
Like who your official game?
Hey Ken, I had a question about that because that did come up the other day, and maybe some other people that are way smarter than me can answer this question. For 2017, will there be addendums to the current contracts? Do you think?
Well, with the amount of technology that we're building, probably. I'm going to say yes, but it's a guess.
Okay. For anybody that didn't hear, Ken's answer was yes. Jason.
Matt, just to that point, like, it's gonna be voted on and mandated within the conference. I don't think you're gonna have a scenario where one school has it and one doesn't, just from the standpoint that coaches aren't going to want to operate in an environment where 4 games out of the year they get it, 2 other road games they don't get it, but they get it all at home. It's just not.
I think what he was saying is when I go to Miami in 2 years, if I've got it, but they don't, what happens when I go to Miami?
I think it's going to be that same scenario though, where like you're.
And that's fine, but I think that was the question, not necessarily within conference. James.
The only problem, like I see, like especially like in our level, like the conference has rules, but sometimes some teams like in the conference don't give a shit and they don't get punished, so they're going to keep doing it anyway.
Well, that's on your conference to enforce rules that they make.
Yeah.
That's not on us. We can't do anything about that. So if that's a problem, then that needs to be brought to your conference's attention.
If the conference doesn't do anything.
Well, then there's not much you can do if the conference isn't doing anything. You can keep. I'd say what you could do is just continue to contact the conference office. So.
Or contact. I guarantee you, if your coach finds out other teams are breaking the rules, that's how things get done. I mean,
oh no, I mean I've told my coach about some of the stuff like the teams like not getting building on time, but.
well, I mean, all you can do is do your due diligence and take it from there.
Yeah.
But there's some problems we're not going to be able to solve.
All right, Tim.
So, something we did last year with the replay thing is we knew we were going with DV Sport. We kind of worked backwards to the administration. So we had our vendor, we knew what we were going with, and then we worked backwards to get to our AD, to the people at the conference, that this is what we wanted to go with. So I think it might work for some of the smaller schools that we know are going with, you know, Exos, DV Sports, Sky Coach, what are those? That we can work backwards and help get the infrastructure, work with the vendor can help push the conference, the vendor can help push our ADs to help purchase what we need to make our smaller stadiums up to capability.
everybody asking like if you are going to roll up to a stadium and they decide to not put the infrastructure in, well, you always have the option to buy a spool of like tactical fiber, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 5,000 feet, whatever you need. I mean, we think about it, but TV trucks roll into these games and they have to home run every single thing that they do already. I mean, we're doing pretty much the same thing. You can supply your own cable if you need to.
So the question I think I would ask the NCAA, just because I don't want to be in a Wi-Fi environment, it's already cluttered, why wouldn't I want to be in a wireless environment using broadcasting? And if, I hate that you're using this example, Miami didn't have that wire in place, that fiber, what stops me from using like a Wave Central and sending HDSDI over a licensed frequency over my coach's box right to do my thing? Anything? There would hurt a reason I couldn't do that?
What's the cost?
The high end would be like 65K. Well, I mean, you could rent it for a lot less. But I'm saying buy it outright, and that's like a 4 antenna diversity system. So I mean, there's lots of options if you're in a situation where you think once a year you're going to be in that place where you don't have fiber. Well, now you're talking about $15,000 a year if you amortize over 4 years, and that's with a $16,000 solution. I just think you've got to stay away from the Wi-Fi because the Wi-Fi environment is so cluttered. But that doesn't mean that there isn't spectrum out there to be Wi-Fi. You can do gig over wireless at this point. So I mean, there's technical answers out there. Just do the homework. It's there. Well, the other key is it's got to be licensed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and most of the vendors that sell it to you are going to help you go through that process anyway. So it's not difficult. You just have to maintain license. I can't speak for everybody else, but my frequency coordinator on campus will take the license over and maintain it. So it's really not that stressful once we pay the initial sum of money by the wireless.
And just to be clear, the license you're talking about is the FCC license. And just so everybody else understands that. Anybody else? Nobody else? We feel like we're good now for now?
Yep.
So if you haven't kind of gotten organized with your conference, if you're on the Pac-12, if you're on the SEC, standardization at the conference level, just as far as what your infrastructure is, the wiring within your stadium, single mode, and what you're going to have and where it's going to be, sideline, end zone, coaches' boxes, locker rooms, the amount of, maybe the amount of redundancy that you have. Think about that at the conference level. If you haven't done that already, we haven't done it at the Big Ten level. We've batted some stuff around, but it's in our court right now, according to the Big Ten. So, I think that's one of the best things that can be recommended at this point. Conference reps, make sure that you find out who you're going to have from your conference. Power 5, Group of 5, and start talking about some standards.
Can we add the American Conference to Power 5 group? I mean, we would like to have our standards.
Well, we've already talked a little bit.
Yeah, we've talked. And
we're way.
Honestly, we would like to have that same standard. The American Conference, I feel like, I don't know if we'd like to talk to DJ, but I mean,
he's right against the wall.
But I honestly believe that we'd like to have maybe the same set of standards that the Power 5's having. I mean, but
I think it's discussion just amongst the groups.
Just
that's fine.
Just give us the notes for the Power 5 as well.
It'll be a collaboration. It's not going to be Power 5 is doing one thing, Group 5 is doing another thing. it'll all be collaborated with. So, all this will be up on YouTube later on. Hey, the other thing is that I apologize for bandwidth issues that we've had. I will go back Monday and Tuesday of next week, and I'll post anytime you've seen the camera on up here. I will post all those to YouTube. I will post the links on the Facebook. I will email them to our friends that are not on social medias.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you can go back and watch anything you might have missed. It is currently 1:49. We will take an 11-minute